Hi friends, welcome to TalentSprint. I hope your IT prep is going great and it's placement season, so we decided to do a live video on 10 most commonly asked interview questions, programming interview questions, to help you get an idea of what kind of questions are asked. So it's actually really difficult to pick 10 from the whole wide lot, but the idea here is to just give you a hint of what kind of questions are asked from different areas like strings or normal questions, especially for freshers. So if you are a fresher and you're out there looking for a job in IT, or if you are a person who has gotten into the testing side of IT job and now wants to move into maybe coding side, what kind of questions may be asked? Now, programming is, I feel there are two parts to it. There's syntax, the logical syntax of how a program should be written in any particular language, and then there is logic of solving your actual problem. So the logic part, I feel, generally remains the same all throughout the languages. It's just the syntax above the language that about the logic that changes in different languages. So for example, if you have to write a program in C, your logical steps would remain the same, but just writing the syntax would be different from maybe Java or say Python. But how you approach your problem is kind of always similar. So we'll also take a look at how do we approach our questions. In the process of it, I'll introduce you to several different libraries, especially in the Java programming questions that I have here, to give you a knowledge of the existing libraries that are there that you can make use of while writing a program. You don't have to always write lengthy pieces of code to do maybe a reverse or some other functionality. There are already pre-existing functions in the vast library that you can use. And when not, is always the logic and programming idea to the rescue. All right. So let's go ahead, start on. I'll share my screen. If you have any doubts at any point of time during any question, just feel free to drop a comment. So 10 most frequently asked programming interview questions. Okay. Now let me start off with the very first one that I have picked. So there's no order or relevance to the number of questions or the order of questions that I have picked up. They are just random questions to give you a hint of how to approach your questions, how to decide what process you take towards solving your questions. Okay, so the very first one, write code to check if a string is palindrome or not. Now, I hope you all might be already aware of what a palindrome is. It's a string, phrase, or sentence that reads the same backwards as well as forwards. So your interviewer or the if you're writing a written exam, you might be asked question on if the string is a palindrome or if the number is a palindrome or if any sentence is given to you, whether that sentence is a palindrome or not. So in all these cases, what you have to do is simply check whether forward and backward reading is same or not. Now, to do that, we have been equipped with very nice functionalities in Java. So let's say your string is hello world. Now you have to reverse. To reverse, you can use a string buffer or you can also use a string builder. Now I'll come to the differentiation of both later on in this video. But for now, let's say you create a new string buffer right here and pass your word inside it. Now you get a new string buffer variable. Okay. that has word assigned to it, hello world assigned to it. Now, when you say dot reverse, now dot reverse is a function of string buffer class that reverses the buffer. Okay, so this dot reverse function will automatically reverse your string, but we still have a string buffer and we want a string to compare both the strings. So then we use another method that is pre-existing in our library, which is dot toString. Now dot toString would convert your string buffer that you obtain here back to a string, and that string, the reverse string now, would be stored into the string reverse. And finally, you can just go ahead and use an if construct to compare if your word is equal to reverse or not. If it is equal, then your string is a palindrome. If it is not equal, then your string is not a palindrome. So fairly simple, right? Just one line and you're done with the program. Now you can below this add your main and everything, complete the whole structure of the program. But this is where the actual logic of the program lies, how to convert your string. Now, moving on. This is how we did it using string buffer. Now let's say we try it some other approach. Okay. Let's say string builder. Now string builder is also another class predefined in Java, which we can use, which will do the exact same thing as string buffer. So it's up to you. You can use string buffer or string builder here, but the functionality would be almost exactly the same. Now moving on. If you don't want to use those functionalities, or if your interviewer, when you write your line of code, asks you that I don't want to use the pre-existing functions, write a reverse function. So you go ahead and write a reverse function. Now to reverse a string or to reverse a number, all you have to do is you have to catch hold of the individual letters of the string. Now once you have the individual letters of the string, you can iterate backwards and store the string backwards in another variable, and then finally compare those. Okay, that is ideally the logic behind solving this. So in this function string reverse, we have passed the source string inside the function. Now the basic check would be check if the source is equal to null or not, if the source is empty or not. In either of these cases, you don't have to worry about comparing. If it is null or it is empty, just return the source back. You don't have to say anything. Now, string reverse, you created a blank reverse string, and now you are inside the loop, for loop, that starts from string.length -1 and goes out until the length becomes 0. And it's now inside this for loop, we are storing our string backwards in the variable reverse. So reverse is equals to reverse plus source at char at I. So I would be the last character of the string for the first iteration. For the second iteration, it would be the second last character of the string. So likewise, you'll reverse it and assign. Now, instead of returning source and reverse here, you should ideally be returning here true or false, whether the string is matching, it's true or false. Okay. Now, if you do the same thing, since we talked about the existing functionality in Java, if you want to do the same thing in C, you have the function strrev to do the same. All right. Now, moving on. Write code to check if two strings are anagrams. Now, anagrams are words that are made up of the existing letters, but just misspelled to spell something else. For example, let me give you an example to clarify it in better. Let's say you have a word angel. Now, if you want to find another anagram, it could be glean. So as you see, all the letters in this and this are same. We have G, we have A, we have L, E, N. So as many as combinations of words you can make from the similar letters that are there in one word, they are called anagrams. So for this problem, you are generally asked to find whether two strings are anagrams or not. Okay. So there are some basic checks that you can always take care of. It is ideally recommended if you are making a production ready code, you take care of all the corner conditions. So if you are in an interview also, you can make sure to do these minimal checks to show that you are taking care of the corner conditions. So the basic checks could be if the string is null or empty, what do you have to do? If you have strings, you don't know which case they are in, you can very well go ahead and convert them to uppercase or lowercase. All right. And you can compare if two strings are equal in length or not. Now, if the two strings are not equal in length, then obviously they are not anagrams. Okay. Okay, I got a question from Raj. Simply we can do reversing and then compare. Why two string? Because when you do reversing, Raj, you have a string buffer or a string builder object. You don't have a string object. All right. So you can ideally, you should go ahead and convert it to two string before just going to compare it with the existing string. Okay. Okay, Krishna says hi, hello. Sorry guys, I am getting your chats a little late. All right. So getting back to this. Okay, write code to check if two strings are anagrams. So as I said, make sure to do all the basic checks that are part of your program possibly. So for in this case, you should check if your string is null, you can return false. If your string is empty, you can either of the strings is empty, you can return false. Once you can convert your string to uppercase and lowercase to avoid any case problems. And you can check if the two strings are equal in length or not. Okay. Now, so this is a very basic version or very easy version of the program that you can do. So as you see here, we have written a function is anagram that takes a word and an anagram as input. So you have word and you have an anagram. Now you have to check if these two are anagrams or not. Cool. So what you do is you convert your word to a character array. So once you convert this string to a character array, what this character array will hold is W O R D. Alright. Similarly for anagram array, if you have this string anagram, whatever the value is there, let's say the value here is also word. Okay. Now what you are doing is, since you have character arrays now, you can use the functionality sort. Now what sort will do, it will sort your array in ascending order. So once you have your array sorted in ascending order, you have two arrays that are sorted in ascending order. So you can very well then go ahead and compare. Use the function equals to compare these two character arrays. If the comparison turns out to be true, that means the two strings are anagrams. Else, they are not. So if there are any questions so far around these two questions, SQL queries, which SQL queries? I'm not very sure. Can you please rephrase your question? Balam Nilesh? Uh, so we have programs. You can use for loop to check elements of two strings. Yeah, you can definitely use for loop. See, there is never one single approach towards solving a question. There are multiple approaches to approach your question. So you can do a question like anagram one way using for loop. Someone else, your peer, might do it in completely different way. So these are all just different ways of approaching your problem, making it simpler, shorter, faster, as I would like to say. So production ready code in IT industry generally has to be faster. So if cleaner, neater, crisper, if you take all those things into account, you might not have to. You can very well go ahead and use a for loop. That is also a very right approach to do it, Krishna. All right. Any other queries on this, or we shall move forward? Why are we using sort rather we can use directly equals? Directly equals. So let's say if you get, let me show you. Let's say we have angel. Okay, that is your one word. And then your other word was glean. So you converted them to two char array and you assigned them to this. So you are saying we skip these two steps, convert sorting them. If you skip these two steps, what this equals will do is it will compare first element of this with first element of this. Okay, I go B. So what has happened is it will compare A with G, which will not return true. So to make sure that case doesn't happen, you need to do sort. So all these are arranged then. After sorting, you'll get A, E, and same would be the second. Now once they are sorted and you do the equals, everything will be compared, right? And you'll get the right result. Okay? Any other questions on this? Or shall we move forward? Okay, so for the first question, I also wanted to tell you one thing to talk about string, string buffer, and string builder. Okay? Uh, Nilesh, I'm still not getting which training on Tableau, so I want to know SQL queries. Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but let's keep the chat for questions of this live session as of now. Later on, you can maybe drop a comment below, and I'll try to get back to you on what this Tableau SQL queries are. All right. Okay, so now moving on. String, string builder, and string buffer. So it is not general knowledge. People generally don't see that string is a immutable and final data type in Java. So once you create a string and assign some value to it, it is immutable. You can never change the value of that string. It is the final variable value that will continue forever. Now you might say we do all operations like string concatenation, string truncation, substrings of a string, and store them in the same variable. We always change values of a string. But that is not what exactly happens in the background. Whenever you perform any operation on a string variable, always a new object is created with the new value. So let me explain it to you like this. This is, let's say, a variable x, string variable, and there's some value inside it. Okay. Now, if you change this value, and this variable is obviously a memory location. So let's say at memory location ABCD, we have variable x stored with the value whatever. Now, if you do some modification, let's say you truncate this string and assign it back to x, that would be a new memory location x, and a different value this time. So there's a lot of garbage created when you use strings because strings are immutable and final. So the more you do operations on strings and assign it back to the original value, the more objects are created. So this is about string. Now what string buffer does is it's basically used to create modifiable string buffer. So once you create a string buffer, you can keep on modifying it and changing the value. It will not create multiple objects. There will be one value at one memory location, and that value will keep on changing. Similar is the story with string builder. String builder also does the exact same thing. The only difference is between string buffer and string builder, all public methods of string buffer are synchronized. And by synchronize, I mean that only one thread can use it at a time. So all public methods of a string buffer are synchronized, which makes string buffer thread safe, but at the very same time, it can make your program slow. So until and unless there is not an exact requirement of making the program thread safe, people generally don't use string buffer, they go to string builder because it is little faster, and the heavier the program goes, it adds more time to your program. So I hope you're clear with string buffer, and string builder. Let's move on. If you have any questions, guys, please drop on the chat box. Okay, let's find whether a number is a perfect number. So we have all seen questions around prime numbers and etc. But perfect number is also one of the most frequently asked questions in interview. Now, in a perfect number, what do we have to check? What exactly a perfect number is? A perfect number is a number in which the sum of the divisors of the number is equal to the number itself. So let's say if you have the number 28, the divisors of 28 would be 1, 2, 4, 7, and 14. Now, if you do the sum of all these numbers, you will get 28. If this sum of all the divisors of your number is equal to the number is called a perfect number. Along the same lines, we have abundant number and deficient number. So a number is called abundant if the sum of divisors is greater than the number itself. And a number is called deficient if the sum is less than the number itself. Okay? So far so good with the definition. Let's move on. Now, okay. Let me go back. This is the largest difference. So if you have to find the largest difference in an array, what would you do? You have an array and you have the size of the array. So let's start with largest difference 0. Okay. Now what you have to do is you have to be in a for loop. For int I is equals to 0, I less than size minus 1, I plus plus, you calculate the difference between the first element and the second element. So let's say this is your array. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in the very first iteration, you check the difference between a of 0 and a of 1. Now, if this difference, whatever comes, you store it in the variable difference. Moving on, In the next iteration, what you will do is you will compare A1 with A2. And in this first iteration, you have stored the difference in LDIF. Okay. So when you compare A1 with A2, you get the difference again. Now, if this difference between A1 and A2 is greater than the previous difference, that is LDIF, you make the largest difference to this difference, A1, A2. Then next iteration, you compare A3. Again, if this is greater than the previous one, LDIF will become this. And this process will continue till you have moved along the whole of the array, and finally you get the largest difference and return it back. Clear? So, okay, array questions. So far we have seen string questions. There are multiple questions, especially during the interviews, that are formed around strings. So you can go back and search for all the string questions. It is very, I would say, it will be very helpful to you if you know all the string classes and the functions to make it easier for you to write the complex codes. Now, the second most commonly asked topic is around arrays. One-dimensional, two-dimensional, whatever kind of arrays, that is the most. So for freshers especially, we stick to 1D arrays. And questions like find the second largest number in an array are very frequent. Or sometimes the interviewer just starts with find the largest number in the array. Feel that, wow, that's a piece of cake. We can write a for loop, find the largest piece element in the array, and we are done. Now, when the next question comes, find now the second largest, or the third largest, or let's say the nth largest, where the value of n you take from the user. All right? Those kind of questions then become tricky because your mind stops at the largest. So let me show you the second largest. Again, you have a function, you have an array and size. So first largest, we assigned it to the 0th element, and the second largest, again, we assigned it to the 0th element initially. Now what we are doing is we are moving inside for loop. So if I is equals to 1 less than size I plus plus, our loop will continue, our iterations will continue. Now if ARR I, that is 1 for the first iteration, is greater than the first largest. Okay. So the second, let's take an example so that it becomes clear. Let's say we have 9, 3, 4, and 10. So the largest is 10 and the second largest is 9. So F largest and S largest are right now assigned to this ARR of 0. Now if we check if this is greater than F largest, let's say it is 13. So this is greater, what will you do? This will become the largest. So the first largest will point to this, but in the second largest will remain here. Okay, that is what we are doing in these lines of code. Again, in the next iteration, you will check it for this element. This is greater than 13? No. So F first largest will keep pointing to here, and second largest will keep pointing to here. And so on and so forth, you will continue in the iterations till you get your second largest. So if, again, I'm reiterating so that you just get this logic. If ARRI is greater than F largest, means this element is now the greatest of all, since it is greater than the first largest. So second largest, you assign it to first largest. Let's say there are 3 values, 9, 10, 11. And this is assigned to first largest and second largest both. Now when you go on to 10 and you say that 10 is greater than F largest, you assign second largest to F largest, which was already this in our case. And then F largest, you move on from here to here. Similarly, in the next iteration, when you check for 11, you'll see that 11 is now the greatest. So you move second largest to F largest first. Now S will come here and F will come here. Cool. How to develop programming skills? Okay, that is a very broad question. Whoever that is, I'm sorry I didn't get the name from your ID. But programming skills are fairly easy to develop. I feel all that you need is practice. And for that matter, not just programming, if you have to improve your communication, if you have to improve your aptitude, all these sections are all there in the competitive exam papers like MCAT, CoCubes, etc., that you all might plan to attempt at some point of time. So if you have to get better at any of the skills, all you need to do is just persistent practice, continuous practice. Whatever time that you get out of your schedules and studies and whatever the work that you are doing, 1 hour of practice every day. And by practice, I don't mean go back to your books and try to cram up the program that is written in there. That is not going to help you. Programming is about logic. You might get the syntax of it by cramming in 1 go or 2 go or 3 go, but until and unless you develop your mind to solve a problem, it will not help. Okay, so I think that was a very broad question. That is my answer to it for now. Raj is saying NS largest can be found by first sorting the array and then we'll retrieve the data by the AN plus 1. Yes, very correct, Raj. That is actually the right approach to do nth. I was about to say you tried doing nth largest on your own, but you've already given the answer right here. So sorting is, yes, one way to find your largest, second largest, third largest. Now, if you attempt sorting, which is very nice, if you attempt sorting, then your interviewer gets to know that you are aware of sorting techniques if you are using a particular sorting technique. So the next question ideally that I have seen coming up in interviews, if you use sorting, is what is the best sorting that you can use, sorting technique that you can use to do this program in the least possible time. So as you all might know, sorting techniques are faster, slower, someone is faster, there's time complexity and all of that associated to sorting techniques. Okay, so that is that is where your interview might turn to when you use sorting, which is very good. If you know sorting, you might as well know all these things about sorting as well, and then it gives a really nice impression to the interviewer that you are aware of all these things. So sorting is, yeah, like I said, there are multiple ways to solve a problem. Sorting is one way to do the nth largest. If you don't want to use sorting, just go by the traditional for loop traversal. All right, moving on. String to integer conversion. I'm hoping whoever asked this how to develop programming skills got the answer right. Cool. So let's move on. String to integer conversion. So if you are given a string and you have been asked to convert it to integer, what is the approach to do it? Now again, I'll show you some library functions. Yeah. So if you have an integer, you have to find an integer. All you do is put the string inside this parseInt function of the wrapper class integer. So you know int is a data type, integer is a wrapper class. All right. So what all you do is parseInt is the existing function of the wrapper class. So you just use this to convert and then finally print it out. That is one fairly simple way to do it. Moving on, if you have to do this, I'm sorry, let's get back to the slide. Yeah, this is also possible using parseInt. So what do you think will be the output of, for this particular string? What will be the output of I? So you saw for the previous string 1, 2, 3, here the output will be, you'll get an integer whose value is 123. But the string, if it looks like this, what is going to be the output? Anyone? $81, very right. So what this will do is it will ignore all these values and it will give you the exact integer value that is there. So you will get the output 81. Cool, moving on. Swap two numbers without using a temporary variable. This was to be the favorite question of the interviewers at the time I was giving the interview. I'm not sure if you guys still face difficulty, but I still thought I will include this in this list of 10 because many students fail to understand the logic of temporary variable without using how will to. If you use a temporary variable, it's fairly simple. Yeah, zeros in the front will not print. Yeah, correct. Zeros in the front will be ignored and the actual integer value that is there in the string will be stored in the integer. Alright, so the logic for swap two numbers but without using a temporary variable. Using array, I have a fairly simple way to do it. Typecasting, yeah, typecasting could be one way to do it. Think simple, guys. Why are you hellbound on complicating things? Sometimes simple is great. Try to think simple. The simplest mathematical way that you can swap two numbers with. Okay, plus and minus is fine, but why the or operator? Very bare minimum plus minus would help you guys here. Let me show you. Let me. This 3 lines of code. Now you write it in C, you write it in Java, you write it in whatever language that you want to write it in. These are the very simple 3 lines to swap two numbers without using a temporary variable. So let's take an example. Let's say A is 20 and B is 30. Cool? Yeah, XOR is, yes, I got your point that you are trying to use XOR, but until unless stated, I think I would avoid XOR in an interview because that again would twist your interview into more of electrical computer kind of conversations, gates and all. You'll have more questions along the line of gates. So if you're not very comfortable with the questions on gates, I'd say avoid XOR and stick to the basic. See, your interview is most of the time in your very own hands. The way you give the answer to the questions determines, especially in IT interviews, it determines what question might fly up your way next. So you can be very conscious and not, I would not say conscious, but you can be very aware of the fact of the answers that you are giving if you want to take care of the questions that are flying your way. Okay, it's not twisting, it is just that you need to be aware of what you're saying in an interview because whatever you say makes the interviewer decide what question he wants to ask next. He grabs your weak point or he grabs your strong point, and accordingly, the next question comes. See, an interview is not a set paper pattern, right? The questions are not pre-decided. The questions are decided then and there when you're sitting in front of your interviewer. So yeah, that is a tip right there. Now, what the first step here will do is A plus B, that is 50. So now A is 50 and B is still 30. Now the second step, B is equals to A minus B. So when you do A minus B, you get 20. So B is equals to 20 and A is equals to 50. Okay? And now the final step. A is equals to A minus B. So when you do A minus B, you get 30. So A is equals to 30 and B is equals to 20. And this is the final result. So you see, initial A was 20, B was 30, and final A is 30, B is 20. Very simple mathematical operations, plus minus, and they have helped you to swap to numbers, which sometimes look a very complex process to freshers, that how will I swap without using third variable. Hi Mustafa, good evening. Cool. So let's move on. Check if integer number is power of 2. So if you have given any integer number, let's say 8 or 13 or whatever, you have to find out if this particular integer is a power of 2 or not. So how will you do it? So return a function power of 2, which is taking the number as input parameter, and we have initialized square to 1. Now while number is greater than equal to square, we get inside the while loop. If number is double equals to square, we return true. If not, what we do is square is equals to 1 into 2. That is, square now becomes 2. Now again we check if 2 is double equals to your number on log. Let's say the number is 11. 2 is not, again we go on, multiply by 2. Now square becomes 4. Again in the next iteration you compare 4 with the number, that is 11. Not equal, go on. 8, still not equal, go on. 10, still not equal, move on. Alright, so this process continues till your number remains greater than the square value that is there. Once your square value becomes greater than the number, that means your number is no more a square. Okay, so finally you return false. Now, find top 2 maximum numbers from integer array. Now this is fairly simple after the nth element of the array conversation that we have just had. We like this kind of session for interviews. It will be good if the sessions will be more. I'm sorry Raj, I have not got your complete text. Can you please retype your second statement? I just got here that we like this kind of session for interviews. It will be good if the sessions will be more, like you are talking about, you want more interview sessions of how to prepare, or programming sessions like the one programs I'm solving right here. Please just let me know whenever. Okay. Moving on. Find top 2 maximum numbers from integer array. So again, I have used this approach, but you guys can scroll back and check the comment of Raj where he said that we can find nth element of the array like that. That approach also you can use here to find the top 2 maximum numbers. So here to find top 2 maximum numbers, I have used a little different approach to explain to you a few different things that are there in the language. So first off, we have taken 2 elements, max1 and max2, and again we have used the wrapper class integer. Now, okay, let me finish off this and then I'll get back to your question, Chaitanya. Max1. So max1. Okay, go ahead and try doing a program where you say system.out.println, simple output, integer.minValue, and check what you get. And also do integer.maxValue and check what you get. So min value will give you the minimum value, and that we have assigned to max1 and max2 both. Now we travel through the numbers of the array, and in every iteration we check if number is greater than max1. We again do the swapping that we just did before. Else if number is greater than max2 is equals to number. So this way, here we get max1 and here we get max2. I'm pretty sure you guys understood this because we have seen this swapping right back. Okay, moving back to the chat. Be good if the sessions will be more programming sessions. And okay, guys, whoever's there on the chat, I thought I would talk about this at the very end, but since the topic is already there, whatever kind of actual session that you would want to do in the free live classes that we do here, if you want more of programming sessions, if you want more of theoretical sessions that help you grasp the concept, you can anytime go ahead and drop a comment on this live session, and we'll try to take an account of it. If there's one particular problem or question that you want me to take up in the next live session, that also you can drop on the link, chat link, whatever there is, so that we get to know what you're actually looking for, and we'll try to do that in the next coming up sessions. Also, for the interview programming questions, if you have not been on the TalentSprint IT page, there is already a playlist there that will take you through multiple interview questions that are asked. So at the end of the session, I'll try and walk you through, if I have the links here, I'll try and walk you through the IT YouTube page of TalentSprint, where you can go ahead and check all those videos. And again, if there is any particular question that you want us to take up, please feel free to drop a comment below and we'll be happy to take it up. Now, next question, Chaitanya that asked, how can I be a good Java developer? In what way should I have to practice? Okay, so since I practiced it all wrong, I think I'm in the right space to say that what not to do while you learn Java. Let's say you have taken a particular book, or you have taken a particular course, or there you are being taught Java in your school or your college or wherever. The one and only way to learn any programming language is to type a program yourself. Until and unless you are afraid of writing code, you will not ever get the logic of how to work your brain to move through the code. All right. So you have to type as much code as possible to make as many mistakes as possible and then learn from your mistakes. Let's say you write your first program and it doesn't turn out to be right, it gives you compiling error. You'll get to know, okay, if I'm getting this compiling error, this is the mistake I'm making. Maybe you'll make it twice or thrice again, but then you'll learn from it. So the more you practice, the more it will be helpful for you to understand from your mistakes, and that is the learning that you'll never forget. The practice learning, the understanding from your mistakes learning is the learning that you will never forget. And the more you do that, the more your brain will develop to write those programs faster. So if you write 10 programs, and the 11th program, you know the very basic structure of Java program. So you can very quickly tuck, type it on, and then move on to the actual logic. And when the logic part, you run it once, you don't get the right output, you run it twice, you don't get the right output, you walk through your program, you see what could be going wrong, and you figure things out slowly. So Chaitanya, my advice to you is just go ahead, download Java on your system machine and just start going crazy with the practice. Okay, Rahul, I'm going to be a systems engineer. Do I require this? Require what? I don't know. Do you require programming knowledge? I think a system engineer actually does require programming knowledge, but I'm not sure what field are you getting into. So system engineers could be mainframe or .NET or whatever. So what's your actual position? I need to know that to help you. Cool. So meanwhile, you have more queries. Let me proceed on this. Count the number of words in a string. So this is another most frequently asked question. Count the number of words in a string, count the number of spaces in a string, count the number of numbers in a string, count the number of vowels in a string. These are the multiple questions that are formed around count the number kind of questions for strings. So when you go ahead, integer word count, you have passed your string here. Now count you have initialized to 0 and you have taken a constant space variable char. Okay. Now while loop, you iterate through your string. If string is double equals to space. So let me give you an example. Hello from TalentSprint. So in this there are 4 words, right? We have to count the number of words. So what I've done inside this for loop is you check if the string at I is double equals to space or not. As soon as you hit a space, so let's say the first space you encounter, you increase the count by 1. So you encountered this space, you increase it by 1. In the coming iterations, when you encounter this space, the count becomes 2. When you encounter this space, the count becomes 3. And then you reach end of the string. So now, since your count is 3, but the actual word count is 4, at the end what you do is you add 1 to your word count always, if you are checking in this process with the spaces, so that you get the actual count. So there are as many spaces in the string, there's one more number of words in the string. All right. Now, moving on. Check if a number is stepping number. Okay. Now, what is a stepping number? Stepping number is a number in which all adjacent digits have an absolute difference of 1. So let's say, for example, 321. This difference is 1. This difference is 1. So 321 is a stepping number. Okay. Now, how do we check? It's a very simple function. Might look a bit complicated, but fairly simple. So you've taken the number here and you are doing mod of 10, which will give you the remainder. So 321, let's say, previous D you are storing as 1. And then you do num by 10, which is 32. So now this has 1 and your number is 32. Okay. So now you need the difference between all numbers. So previous differences, current difference is num mod 10. Now again you do num mod 10. You get a third variable which has 2 now. Okay. And then you take the absolute difference of this and this. That comes out to be 1. Fine. If this difference doesn't come out to be 1, you can go ahead and return false right here. But if this difference is 1, you need to go on and test for the next iterations. Okay. So for moving on to the next iteration, this becomes 2 now. So this is the next iteration. Okay. And just to explain it better. So for the next iteration here in this step, what we are doing is prev D is current D. So 2 comes here and then again we do num by 10. So that is 3. Now again, in the next iteration of your loop, you will get 3 here and then you again check the difference and that is also 1. Okay. So since that is also 1, you will not return false, you will continue. But now when you divide this again, the num will not remain greater than 0. So you'll exit out of the while loop and finally return true. So if at any point the difference is not equal to 1, you immediately say false. But if you go through the number completely, moving through all the digits, you return true at the end. All right. So this was it. Now coming back to the multiple questions that you are firing, let me see. Okay, this is not related to the recently we heard news that 95% don't deserve to be in IT, or they can't write correct logic even. What do you think where lies the problem? See, the problem is again that students don't practice enough. They don't practice enough to write the correct logics. As I have been saying throughout the session, logic of your program is fairly important. In many interviews, if you are not even able to write the correct structure, your interviewer just might ask you, okay, don't write the structure of the program, don't write the code, just tell me how you will solve this problem. It might happen to you if it might not have already happened to you. So the interviewer is more keen on how you approach the problem. Do you have that ability to put your head around the problem? Don't give me the code, because code learning syntax is very fairly easy. But you have to have the knack to solve your problem, to get through the questions. All right? So yeah, 95%, I'm not sure where you heard this news. I'm not even sure whether it's right or not that 95% don't deserve to be in IT. But IT is developing every single day. There are new technologies coming up, there are new methods or processes coming up in the existing languages. The languages come, go, become stale sometimes. Some languages at the top, sometimes some other languages at the top. So, to be at par with all that is happening, you have to get your basics right and you have to get your basics strong. And by that, I mean your logic. Okay? I'm from electronics engineering. How can I get Java programming? Okay, Rahul, I'm not sure in what context you are saying this, because this is IT live. So this is an interview prep IT live. If you are from electronics and you want to get into Java programming or you want to learn Java programming, you will have to start from the basics. This might not have been very helpful for you then. But if that is the case, okay, this is for everyone out there in the live session. In our IT channel, we are going to come up with a series of videos which is Java development, Java tutorial for beginners. Okay, so you can go ahead, subscribe to the IT channel. Let me see if I can show you here. Keep posting your questions meanwhile, guys. I'll get back to you. Okay, Aspiring Minds did a survey on this. Again, Raj, I'm not aware. I'll go ahead and take a look at that. But yeah, I think I get your question. And the crux of the problem, according to me, is just that the students don't practice enough. They get scared by complex problems or logics. So the more you practice, the more it will be helpful to you. Okay? I'm getting tense by looking this through. Rahul, you don't have to be tensed. If you want to learn Java programming, it's fairly simple. Let me go in contact and show you this. So you go to YouTube. This is for those of you who have not seen the channel. I'll just go ahead and show it to you. So you just type TalentSprint IT and you get this channel link, right? TalentSprint IT jobs and placement tips. If you have not subscribed to this already, you can go ahead and click on this subscribe link right here. And okay, first thing, there's going to be a Java tutorial for beginners coming soon. So you'll get the videos uploaded here. If you subscribe, you'll get a notification whenever a video is uploaded. And that is basically step by step teaching you how to learn Java from the very basics of how to install JDK and how to install Eclipse, then moving on to how to write your first program, making you understand what Eclipse is, what is the toolbar in Eclipse, where do you write the program, how you run the program, then moving on to variables and data types. It is for all those beginners out there like you, Rahul, who want to learn programming and who get tensed by looking at these programs. I think that will be a really good head start for you to get into Java. So the videos will be short, like 5 to 10 minute kind of videos that you can watch a video every day or watch 2 videos every day, how much ever you can content you can digest in a day. And again, just don't watch the video. Please, please, please go back and practice it whatever is said. So if in a video we are talking about installing Java and Eclipse, go back to your system, try doing that. You might face some problems, which is all right. Just drop a comment on the video below saying I'm facing this problem and we'll try to help you as much as possible. Okay? And moving on to your question, Raj, that we need more programming questions like this. In this very channel, in this very page, I'm not sure if you have, again, been here or not. You have this frequently asked programming questions. Okay? And if you play this, you'll see there is a good bunch of 63 programming questions in here in this playlist. So from questions to check whether a number is prime or not, question to program to concatenate two strings without using strcat, selection sort, program to count vowels, and this is an ongoing. We are, as and when we get any request from you guys that how to solve this particular problem, we try to come up with a solution for it and we post it up here so that all you guys can benefit from it. Okay? Now, you can please all go ahead, go to this YouTube channel, just type TalentSprint IT and you will find this TalentSprint IT jobs and placement tips. And this is where all the interview questions are already and the coming up Java tutorial for beginners. You'll get a notification if you subscribe to the channel. All right. Now, are there any more questions? We are done with the slides here. So if there are no more questions, I'll give you a minute if you have any more questions, and then we'll just close up the session for today. All right, guys, I think we are all done for the day. So let me close up the session. Stay tuned for the next live session and go ahead, take a look, deep dive into the videos that are there already on the channel, and feel free to take a look at the upcoming Java tutorial for beginners. Thank you very much and have a great day ahead.